No faltaba más que no fueras mi cariño santo.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Reyna. I'm with Texana Genealogy of the San Antonio Public Library, and we are here at the Central Library. Today is the 29th of April, 2021, and we are with Mr. Karam from the Mexican Manhattan Restaurant. Would you please state your full name, age if you'd like, and your current occupation?
My name is Larry Karam. I am 71 years old and I am retired. I've been retired since October of 2020.
Where were you born?
I was born right here in San Antonio at the Santa Rosa Hospital. I've lived my entire life here, and actually my whole family has been here this whole time in San Antonio.
What is your family's ethnic background?
We're Lebanese. I am 100% full-blooded Lebanese. My grandparents emigrated into this country through Mexico back in the late 1800s. My mother was born in San Marcos. My dad was born here in San Antonio. And we are 100% Lebanese descent.
Okay. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a priest. I can remember in grade school vividly saying, I want to be up on that altar. And so I did. I went to the seminary in 1963 when I graduated from grade school. I spent 4 years at St. John's Seminary here in San Antonio on Mitchell Street. And then I spent 2 years at Assumption Seminary on Woodlawn. So I was in the seminary for a total of 6 years. After that time, I says, no, this really isn't for me, and then I left. So I went to pursue other interests at that time.
That's amazing. How did you get into the restaurant business?
After I left the seminary, I was in college, and during the summers in college, I would either work at the restaurant or I had a couple of odd jobs during the summer. I worked with a moving company one summer. I worked with a produce company one summer. But my dad had been in the restaurant business pretty much my entire life, and I chose to follow in his footsteps once I graduated from college.
Okay, so that's how you became known for being a restaurateur?
I was almost born at the Mexican Manhattan.
Okay. How many siblings do you have, and do they work in the business?
There were 6 of us total, 3 boys and 3 girls. I am the oldest, and going to school, we all worked there. We were bussers, we were waiters, we worked in the kitchen. As time went on, I have a brother who, when he graduated from college, stayed with me the whole time. I have another brother who came in for a short period of time and then left. The 3 girls, however, went ahead and chose other occupations. They did not stay. But like I said, all 6 of us did work there while going to school.
What did your job entail? Did you enjoy it? And what did you enjoy most?
My job as president of the company was to do everything. And very honestly, my dad opened the business in 1958, and he told me, go downstairs and wash dishes. I was 8 years old, and I went downstairs and washed dishes. And from that time, I did every single job in that restaurant for years, literally. I washed dishes, I mopped floors, I waited tables, I worked in the kitchen, serving plates, cooking, all of that for years and years and years. After I graduated from college in 1971, I became, if you would call it, the manager of the restaurant. Okay, so at that point, I did not do any of these other jobs unless it was necessary, which even up to last year, I was bussing tables. But
What was your degree in?
my degree was in business administration, okay? But my focus at the restaurant became more of administration, okay? Buying, whatever, bookwork, and so on and so forth. The question posed right now was, what was my favorite job? Well, my favorite part of the restaurant was our customers. Seeing them come and enjoying themselves, literally generations, 4 and 5 generations of customers. And I would see their kids and the kids grow up and have their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids. And it was really, really satisfying to see over the years so many different members of one family come in. And that's the best part of the whole thing. Made me happy.
That was this. What do you miss most about those days?
That. I miss seeing our customers. Right after we closed, I had several customers come to the front door and bang on it when I was there. And I would let them in and we'd take pictures and so on and so forth. And we would reminisce for a little bit. But for instance, we had a young couple that literally got married in one of our dining rooms. They had the ceremony there. And then their kids came after they had their own children. And so here we see whole families just over the years, just time and time again, just following us. And it was so wonderful, so great. It was wonderful to be able to make them happy and be part of their family happiness. It was great.
What's the story behind Mexican Manhattan name? How did your family come to choose that name? And what year did Mexican Manhattan open up? I think you answered that earlier, 1958?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the 19-teens, okay, Dan Anthony's family, a Greek family, came into the United States and opened the Manhattan restaurant on Houston Street. Many people do not remember the Manhattan. But probably around 1940, early 1940s to middle 1940s, the Covarrubias family here in San Antonio wanted to capitalize on the popularity of the Manhattan, which was on Houston Street. Now, the Manhattan did not serve Mexican food, but the Covarrubias family started their restaurant on El Paso Street, and they were going to serve Mexican food, and they wanted to capitalize on the popularity of the Manhattan, and so they called themselves the Mexican Manhattan. Well, in the early 1950s, the Covarrubias family closed their restaurant permanently. And my dad had memories of going there, dancing late into the evening and so on. And he really, really liked the name. So on March the 20th, 1958 is when he actually opened. And he opened under the name of the new Mexican Manhattan. The old Mexican Manhattan on El Paso Street by the Covarrubias family had already closed. And so my dad took the name. It was not registered, but he called himself the new Mexican Manhattan.
And was your restaurant always located on Soledad? And if not, where was it located? And why did you choose that site?
There was a club on Soledad. The address was 121 Soledad. And it was owned by then Senator Red Berry. Okay, well, he, for one reason or another, chose to get out of the club business, and my dad ended up leasing the space to open up the Mexican Manhattan restaurant from Senator Berry. That was in 1958. In 1961, Walter McAllister from San Antonio Savings went to Senator Barry and said, I want to buy your building. Well, Senator Barry ended up selling his building to Walter McAllister, so we had to leave. The address of the original place was 121 Soledad, which was right next door to the downtown San Antonio Savings Association building. And Mayor McAllister wanted to expand his building and continue his operation there. Well, several months later, right across the street, Farley's department store was going out of business. So Milton Brenner, the owner of Solo Serve, came to my father and said, Tony, I want you to reopen Mexican Manhattan right there in the old Farley's department store. So the original Mexican Manhattan that was owned by my father was at 121 Soledad, and that was in the space that was owned by Senator Barry. And several months later, we moved right across the street to 110 Soledad, which was a space being vacated by Farley's department store.
Interesting, very interesting. Very interesting history. What was your clientele like in the early days? Did that change through the years, especially with the renovation of Main Plaza?
Our clientele was almost 100% downtown business people, downtown employees, and families in the evening. We did not have any attraction for the tourists back at that time. And tourism back in the 1950s and 60s in San Antonio probably wasn't as great as it became after Hemisphere of 1968, okay? But prior to that time, we were a lunch crowd. The people worked in downtown San Antonio, from the courthouse, from the city, from the different law offices. They came to Mexican Manhattan to eat, okay? Now, did it change when Main Plaza was renovated? Not really. Main Plaza was renovated many years later after we opened, okay? And they closed a couple of streets. And it took a little while for some of our families to kind of work their way around the new downtown streets. But after a while, no, business was same as usual. We had our lunch crowd, we had our families, all supporting Mexican Manhattan. It's very good.
Who were some of the more famous visitors that came through the doors of Mexican Manhattan?
I can remember in the original location at 121 Soledad, so it had to be either 1959 or 1960, right in that time frame. The first one I remember was David Nelson. David Nelson was one of the family on Ozzie and Harriet back in the day. And David Nelson was doing his basic training at Lackland Air Force Base, because he was doing his service to our country. And I guess it was a Saturday, and they had been given leave, so to speak. And so David and some of his buddies came in, and he was the first one I remember. Over the years, we've had many people who I would think would be famous. Jonathan Winters was there when they were filming Viva Max. Harry Morgan came. James Caan came. He was there. We've had ZZ Top came by. Randy Travis was there. The Beach Boys were there. But my most favorite of all was Rosita. Rosita Fernandez, who was the star of the Arneson River Theater. All of the other people that I mentioned were great people, but Rosita was one of our loyal, longtime customers. She was kind, she was always smiling, and she was San Antonio. And she was probably my favorite of all famous people that came into our establishment.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you tell us about when Mexican Manhattan expanded onto the River Walk? and what it did for the type of clientele, and what year was that?
Mexican Manhattan had grown significantly. The business had grown. So in 1978, I was able to acquire space next door to our original location at 110 Soledad. In 1988, the business had expanded to the point where we really needed more room. And so we knocked down a wall and took part of the property that we had acquired, okay? It was originally occupied by Tom McCann Shoe Store. I don't know if people remember that. Tom McCann Shoe Store, and we made another dining room. That was in 1988. For years and years, we thought about expanding onto the river, but at that time, we just didn't believe the time was right. So about 10 years later, we said, okay, now it's time. And so on July the 3rd, I believe, of 1999 is when we actually opened the patio and the bar. And that was the first time Mexican Manhattan had a full bar and dining on the river. We still were fortunate enough at that time to keep our loyal lunch crowd. The families continued to come in the evening. Our lunch crowd was there, but at the same time, we started picking up the tourist trade because we had Riverwalk dining, and it significantly increased the amount of business that we had. So probably we ended up at the end with about 40% tourists and 60% locals, because our locals never left us.
So, what are some of your favorite moments or events involving the restaurant or about your clientele?
Well, I've mentioned that before, and it's basically our people, our customers. They've had many parties there. They keep saying, oh, you threw a great party. And we said, no, all we did was provide the space for you. You're the wonderful one. You are the one. Our customer is the one that has made this happen over the years. And that's what I miss the most. Seeing them, those are my memories, the different birthdays, the different anniversaries, the different graduations, even weddings. We had several weddings there at the restaurant where people wanted to get married there. And it was gratifying, all the support we had. And that's what I miss. And that's what, to me, was the most fun of the entire career.
What was the most popular item on the menu?
Merchant Special. In 1958, when we opened up, the Merchant Special was 85 cents. Okay?
That was my favorite.
And we probably sold more Merchant Specials than absolutely anything else. There's no doubt in my mind. It was, I guess a lot of people would call it a Mexican plate lunch, and it was a variety, but it was absolutely the most popular. And maybe
what was on it? That was my favorite. For people that don't know, what was on?
The Merchant Special had an enchilada with gravy, tamale with chili, rice, and beans. Back in the day, it came with iced tea, but at some point, and I'm thinking it was probably the 1980s, we dropped the drinks with the dinners, and it was separate. But that was when we first opened, that was the original Merchant Special, came with an iced tea. And I almost hate to say this, but like I said, when we opened in 1958, it was 85 cents. 62 years later, when we closed, it was $9.45. Quite a jump, but that was over a 62-year period. Merchant Special, #1.
Can you please give me the recipe for the enchilada gravy?
Unfortunately, no. We have chosen as a family not to divulge our recipes at this time. Many people have asked me for that gravy recipe. It is undoubtedly the most difficult of any of the recipes we had to make. It had 9 or 10 different ingredients. You had to put them in at the proper time and so on and so forth. It took our cooks years and years and years often to be able to learn how to make that recipe. One thing that it just dawned on me over the years, and we were there for 62 years, we had 3 main head cooks over the 62 years.
Just 3?
Just 3. We had many, many people work under them over the years, but we only had 3 total. 2 of them, the first 2 retired, and at the end we had Stella. She was the one that closed the restaurant down with us. But as you can see, the longevity of these people in teaching some of the others to help them, it took a long time. It took a long time to learn how to make that enchilada gravy.
Perhaps in the future, maybe having a cookbook?
It's possible, but at this point, it's not on our horizon. I'm sorry, Sylvia.
Okay, you've said how long the restaurant was in business. You said it was 62 years. Mm-hmm. And when did it close?
October 24th of 2020 was the last day we operated. We did not let anybody know. Okay, it was a surprise to everyone. It was only family that knew. And we just figured it was time.
If you could go back in time and change one thing, either about the restaurant or your career there, what would it be?
I've been asked that question once before, and the best answer I could come up with was pray. The restaurant business is a people business. You have your employees, you have your customers, you have your partners, and you can always use more wisdom, more understanding, more knowledge. It would have been helpful to get us through a lot of the trying times we had. Would I change anything in the restaurant itself? Probably not. I think that the restaurant itself served its purpose. It served its purpose well, and we served the community of San Antonio, hopefully, very well.
Yes.
So,
extremely well. What does your future hold?
Oh, I love this. Travel and grandkids. Of course, with COVID right now, there hasn't been a lot of plans for traveling, although I have done some, mostly to our children in Lubbock and in Michigan. But right now I have 3 different travel on my schedule, hopefully, and we'll see if they materialize. And then, of course, the grandchildren.
How many children do you have?
I have 3 children and 8 grandchildren. And believe me, they take up a lot of time. Even my own children take up a lot of time, but the grandkids do as well.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you would like to add?
As I mentioned before, 62 years is a long time. And I think it's been an incredible 62 years. And I just want to say thank you to all the employees that we've had over the years, all the customers that we've had over the years, all the support from everyone that we have had, because they are the ones that have made Mexican Manhattan. And it's just been an incredible 62 years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karam.
It's
had
my pleasure,
wonderful
Mr.
business that the city of San Antonio just loves, and everyone was mourned the closing of your restaurant.
Understand, but as I've told, I know my children ask me the same thing, will I be sad? And I said, no, I don't think so, because everything in life has a beginning and an end, and it's time. So.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
No faltaba más que no fueras mi cariño santo.